Welcome again to the old principal. 我就是老校长, and the old principal is going to tell another story. I'm not sure where I got this one from. I think I got this story from a friend. This will be lesson number 23, Susan's Protector. Susan's Protector. Susan 就是一个女人的名字. Actually, my sister's is named Susan. Okay, Protector 保护人, 保护人. Now, before we go any farther, 按照我们的惯例, we will ask my wife to read us the story, and then we will be right back.
Number 23, Susan's Protector. Susan was 34 years old. Due to a medical misdiagnosis, she became blind. She also became angry and frustrated. The only one that she had to keep her from giving up was her husband, Mark. Mark was an army officer and loved Susan very much. Susan lost hope to start with, but Mark determined to help his wife gain the confidence she needed to become independent again. Finally, Susan felt ready to return to her job, but how would she get there? Susan was horrified at the idea of taking the bus alone. "I'm blind," she responded bitterly. Mark promised Susan that he would ride the bus with her for as long as it took until she felt comfortable to do it by herself. For 2 weeks, Mark, in his military uniform, accompanied Susan to and from work each day. He taught her how to rely on her hearing to determine where she was and how to adapt to her new environment. Finally, Susan decided that she was ready to make the trip to work by herself. Each day of the following week, everything went very well. She was doing it. She was going to work all by herself. On Friday morning, Susan took the bus to work as usual. As she was paying the fare to exit the bus, the driver said, "Boy, I sure do envy you." She was quite surprised by his remark, so asked him, "Well, what do you mean?" The driver answered that he had noticed during the past week that a military man had especially been watching her as she got off the bus. At a distance, he watched her as she went to her office. When he was assured that she was all right, he saluted and left. The driver thought she was one lucky lady. Tears of happiness poured down Susan's cheeks. Why the tears? Although she could not physically see him, he had gone far beyond her expectations and was still watching over her.
Welcome back. Are you ready to go? Susan was 34 years old. 34 years old. Not very old, right? Almost half of my age. Due to a medical misdiagnosis. Okay? A medical misdiagnosis. That means the doctor 误诊. He made a mistake. The doctors made a mistake. Do doctors make mistakes? Of course they do. Human beings are human beings. Sometimes they make mistakes. Even doctors make mistakes. And the results sometimes are not very good. Okay? In this case, the misdiagnosis, 这个误诊, she became blind. 使她瞎眼. As you might guess, she became angry and frustrated. Angry, 就生气. I mean, here she is at the she's a young lady. And now she is blind. And frustrated. As I will mention many times during this series, the word frustrated could mean many things. It could mean angry. It could mean depressed, 这个沮丧. It could mean many things. So she became angry and frustrated. Going on. The only one she had to keep her from giving up was her husband, Mark. The only one, she was married. She had her husband. The husband's name was Mark. But it says here something very interesting. The only one she had to keep her from giving up. Of course, 放弃, to give up. Some people, when they give up, they commit suicide, 自杀 or something like that. So, the only one to keep her from giving up, okay, to keep her from giving up, to keep her from means 帮助她不放弃. Okay, to keep her from giving up was her husband, Mark. That was good. Okay, Mark was an army officer. Army officer, 军队的军官. And he loved Susan very much. 他非常非常爱上 Susan. Now he is an army officer. Going on. To start with, Susan lost hope. Okay? To start with, she lost hope. Of course, at the very beginning, at the outset is 最起初啊. At the outset, she gave up hope. So I think this is natural. The first reaction to something like this, if you were to end up being blind, the first reaction would be what? Would be to give up hope, 就失望. Okay? In this case, Mark, so instead of giving up, Mark determined to help his wife gain confidence. He determined. That means 他决定，他有这种决心 to help his wife to gain confidence. 要开始对自己有自信心呢。To have confidence, to develop confidence. To help her have confidence that she needed to become independent again. Let's read it again. Susan lost hope to start with, but Mark determined to help his wife gain the confidence she needed. She needed some 自信心 to become independent again. 能够变得独立的一个人. Now, it's true that many people, because they are blind, are dependent on other people. 他们是必须靠别人. So, but it's surprising. Some blind people are surprisingly independent. So he is going to try to help her to become an independent person. Finally, one day, I imagine that this took some time. It took some time. This is a project that takes a degree of time and effort and encouragement, 鼓励. You don't just say, today you're blind, tomorrow everything's okay. That won't happen. It takes time to cope with it. 要适应啊，要应付. Okay. Finally, Susan felt ready to return to her job, but how would she get there? Well, I mean, the first thing is she has a job that she can do by still being blind. That's pretty impressive. I would say very few jobs 有不多的工作 that you can really, a blind person can do. Answering telephone, maybe yes. I don't know what it was. Finally, Susan felt ready to return to her job, 回到她的工作的岗位. Okay? But how would she get there? Of course, working is one thing, but how do you get from home to work and from work back home? That's the struggle. Okay? How would she get to where she was supposed to be working? Going on. Susan was horrified at the idea of taking the bus alone. Horrified, 非常害怕. Horrified. She was horrified. She would never do this. Not a blind person. In fact, she said, I'm blind. She responded bitterly, I'm blind. 我瞎了眼呢. She responded, 这个回答 respond 回答 bitterly 痛痛苦苦的痛苦的痛苦的这个回答 I am blind, I'm blind. It's almost like, in fact, many people do. They say, 我现在是没有用的人. I'm worthless. I'm blind. I can't do anything. So you can understand. 可以同情她. You can be sympathetic with her. This is a normal reaction. 这个是正常的一个反应. Going on. Mark promised Susan that he would ride the bus with her for as long as it took until she felt comfortable to do it by herself. He promised, 这个给他一个应许，他的诺言, that he would ride the bus with her. He would go on the same bus with her for as long as it took. 不管是要用多少时间, he would go with her and be with her 直到 until she felt comfortable to do it by herself. This is a very big-hearted husband. I mean, he has his own work, but he says, I will take care of you. I will be with you. I will help you until you learn how to do it by yourself. Okay? Do it by herself. 她自己能够来做的. Comfortable. 感到很舒服. You know, right now she was very uncomfortable. Okay, going on. For 2 weeks, Mark in his military uniform. Military uniform, 军服, 服装啊, 军服. Okay, so he's wearing his military uniform. He accompanied 陪着他 to go with. When you accompany someone, you go with them. So he accompanied her for 2 weeks to go with her to and from work each day. He would go with her to work, and then at the end of the day, he would go pick her up, and he would then go home with her at the end of the day for 2 weeks. Going on. He taught her how to rely on hearing to determine where she was and how to adapt to her new environment. Okay, a couple words here. Couple words. He taught her how to rely on her hearing. 靠你的听力. Now, you have eyes. I have eyes. So we see things. We do not depend upon our hearing. So a blind person cannot see, so he listens to the sound. He listens to, if the sound bounces back quickly, he says, oh, must be something coming up. Listen carefully to 确定它在什么地方. Okay, that's how you listen. And how to adapt to her new environment. 怎么能够适应她新的环境? Now, adapt, we all have to adapt to new things. Sometimes we use the word to get used to. 适应, to get used to. But you can use the word adapt. Adapt to her new environment. So he's teaching her how to do this. Going on. Finally, Susan decided, this is after 2 weeks, right? Susan decided she was ready to make the trip to work by herself. 已经准备好了，可以这么一个人去上班了。By herself, 一个人。Whoa, now that is scary. Going on. Each day of the following week, 这个下一个星期的下一周的每一天 everything went well. 一切都很顺利，很顺利。She was doing it. Wow. She was going to work all by herself. She was excited. She was excited. Okay? She was doing it. 她自己来做，亲自。She was going work all by herself. 她一个人独立做的。She wasn't depending upon anyone else. Going on. On Friday morning, Susan took the bus to work as usual. As she was paying the fare to exit the bus, the driver said, okay, wait a second, we got to look at this. As she took the bus to work on Friday morning, Okay? As usual. As usual. What does that mean? 按照平常他所做的. Sometimes we use the word 按照惯例, okay? What you're used to doing. Okay, as usual, she took the bus. She's bus 这个公共汽车巴士. Okay, taking the bus. She was as she was paying the fare, 她付这个钱的时候 the fare. Usually we say a bus fare. A bus fare, that's the amount of money that you have to pay to ride on a bus. So that's a bus fare. So as she was paying the fare to exit, you pay, then you can leave, okay? The bus, the driver said, this is what the driver said. Going on. Boy, I sure envy you. Huh? That's a boy. This is just a way of saying, like, aya, okay, or something like that. I sure envy you. 我很羡慕你. 羡慕你, envy. She was quite surprised by his remark. 他说的话 his remark, 使她蛮吃惊啊. I'm sure that even though she couldn't see, she kind of raised her eyebrows and like, what is this? And so she asked him, what do you mean? He said, I envy you, 我羡慕你. And she said, excuse me, what do you mean? Going on. The driver answered that he had noticed during the past week, 过去这一周 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and now on Friday, that a military man, 军队的一个人 had especially been watching her as she got off the bus. 特别 what is this? Watching her, looking at her, paying attention to her as she got off the bus. 当她下车的时候. Okay? Military man, of course it's her husband, but he didn't know that was her husband. Okay? The driver didn't know at least. Had especially been watching, 特别看她 as she got off the bus. Going on. At a distance, he watched her as she went to her office. Now, what do you say at a distance? Of course, we know distance means, normally distance would mean what? It would mean 距离, okay? But if we say at a distance, 就远远的他就看着他，远远的 at a distance， 远远的看着他。She went to her office. When he was assured that everything was all right. Okay, when he was assured, that means when he was sure, 他肯定一切都很好啊。他已经确信一切都好 okay, that everything was all right, he then saluted and left. 他就敬个礼，然后离开啊。Going on, the driver thought she was one lucky lady. The driver thought, 他自己的思想，这个妇女是一个非常运气好的一位 ，one lucky day， 很almost 幸福的意思啊 ，OK， tears of happiness poured down her cheeks. Tears of happiness. Tears, 眼泪, right? Okay, of happiness. 这个快乐的泪水 or 眼泪 poured down her cheeks. 她的脸 this is her face, her cheeks right here. And the water, the tears are coming down her cheeks. Going on. Why the tears? Well, she couldn't see him. So why is she crying? Why is she crying? Of course, they're happy. This is a happy cry. This is not a sad cry. 这个是快乐的眼泪, right? Although she could not see him, 虽然她没办法用眼睛看到他, he had gone far beyond her expectations. 远远超过她的期望。远远超过她的期望。And he was still watching over her. 他还是守护、保护她 even though she did not know it at the time. Well, what a story. Now, let me tell you that you can write an email to me. My email address is theoldprinciple 老校长 @gmail.com. 我们的网站是 www.theoldprinciple.org. It's been great to have you for a few minutes with us to go over Susan's Protector, this story. And I hope that you will join us next time for another interesting story.